Aloha kako. Welcome and good evening, everyone. Holy makiki ho, and Happy New Year, Waimea. My name is James Eustace, and I'm the president of the Waimea Community Association. Thank you for those joining us online tonight for our regular monthly Waimea Community Association town meeting. And tonight we'll be hearing important updates relating to the challenges our community faces during this time. And we are grateful to be joined by our elected officials representing the larger Waimea area. I encourage you to follow, like, and subscribe to the Waimea Community Association on our social media platforms. You may also find relevant information and resources on our website at waimeatown.org. We do strive to keep our accounts active and up to date. At this point, I would like to recognize the Waimea Community Association board members, our Vice President, Mary Beth Lachek, our Treasurer, Jeremy Madrid, our Secretary, Nancy Carr-Smith, and our directors, Michael Donnelly, Patty Cook, Riley Smith, Lonnie Olson-Chung, and David Greenwell. I am grateful for a strong team of community-minded individuals that love our beautiful town of Waimea and continue to support the work asked of the Waimea Community Association. And on behalf of the WCA board, we are grateful for the support shown by you, the community, to hold virtual town meetings during this time. And much like last year, and especially at this time, we will continue to hold town meetings in this virtual setting with our aim to provide you a connection to community leaders and an opportunity to learn more, especially about important and relevant information. Thank you all for your interest in joining us for our past meetings and for viewing and sharing these recordings. You're welcome to revisit and rewatch these videos up on our Facebook page or up on our YouTube channel. The Waimea Community Association is a nonprofit organization that strives to promote open participation by all of the Waimea community, develop leadership, and support the smart growth of the region. If you'd like to support the work that we have done and help continue our effort in connecting with our community, you're more than welcome to donate and join as a member. The beginning of the year is also a perfect time to renew your membership. If this is something that interests you and you would like to receive more information, please email us at waimeacommunityassociation@gmail.com or visit our website at waimeatown.org to download a membership form. You're welcome to mail these forms and your annual dues to the Waimea Community Association at P.O. Box 2622 at Kamwela, Hawaii 96743. This information and more can be found on our website, waimeatown.org. We are also, while we foresee the need to connect with the community in person, as the WCA has done for many years for our monthly town meetings, we will continue to gauge the safety and follow the necessary protocols for the health and well-being of our community. That said, we would like to move in a direction of holding hybrid meetings when the time is appropriate. For the Waimea Community Association to present and hold a hybrid meeting, we would be grateful for your support in raising additional funds to purchase the necessary equipment to make that possible. We have relied upon the generosity of board members and community members for particular tech pieces. And through the years, we were able to raise funds for a new mic and speaker system. And as we look towards holding hybrid meetings, we will need additional support to purchase additional tech pieces to make this possible, from a projector screen to a camera and any necessary connectivity to make it all happen. We are grateful for any contribution that can help us move in this new direction. Thank you for considering this request, and we look forward to connecting with you in the community safely and in person down the road and in the future. Mahalo nui loa. So as mentioned, and for our agenda this evening, we'll be hearing some important updates from community leaders and our elected officials representing the Waimea area. We'll begin this evening with a community policing update from our South Kohala District community policing officers. We will then spend a little time discussing our current COVID-19 situation. And after a special announcement, we will then move into our main portion of tonight's meeting as we hear from our elected officials representing the larger Waimea area. And as they particularly share their public policy goals and priorities for the year ahead for this year, 2022. This evening, we're grateful to be joined by Representative David Tarnas, Councilmember Tim Richards, and Councilmember Heather Kimball. Unfortunately, Senator Inouye was unable to join us this evening. We are grateful to present all of you, our viewers, with a full and informative agenda. And after we hear from our elected officials, we have allocated time to share your questions with our presenters. We appreciate community members sending in their questions ahead of time. We will also try and capture some of your live questions for this portion. Please use the Facebook chat to enter in your questions, and we'll do our best to share them with our elected leaders at the end of the meeting here. I also want to thank our WCA board members, Mary Beth and Mike, for joining me this evening and presenting these questions. So at this time, I would like to welcome back and welcome in our community policing officers, CPO Justin Cabanting and CPO Ansel Robinson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So today I'm going to go ahead and start a little bit different and just address right off the bat, because of the holiday season, the issue of fireworks complaints. In particular, for the holiday period from December 25th through January 2nd, the South Koala District responded to 47 calls or complaints of fireworks being used illegally. In only one instance, were officers provided enough investigative information to issue a summons for their activity. In all other cases, there is either not enough or insufficient information to initiate a prosecution for the responsible individuals. We encourage the community in the future to help us by actively getting involved, being willing to be a witness in trial, also capturing video footage or any evidence that can substantiate the fireworks happen. We need the community's help to prosecute these, because often these fireworks complaints come in when we're on the other side of town, especially during January's holiday season. We're bouncing from one side of town to the other on fireworks complaints, and by the time we get there, often the fireworks is extinguished. I'm going to go ahead and now go into the district enforcement activities, specifically traffic. So for the month of December, we're going to start with citations here. We issued 128 speeding citations, 133 moving citations, 26 seatbelt citations, 286 regulatory, 72 unsafe, 52 device with cell phone, mobile device, and we made 12 OVUI arrests or DUI arrests. Additionally, we issued 4 child restraint citations. In regards to the major traffic collisions for this year, we actually had a moderate increase. This year, there were for December, there were 19 as compared to 8 for last year. Some highlights regarding the traffic collisions: there was one major traffic collision involving serious bodily injury in the month of December, but no fatalities. Traffic collisions occurred disproportionately during the afternoon and evening hours. In December, all traffic collisions occurred between 1000 hours. Sorry, all major traffic collisions occurred between 1000 hours and 2400 hours, with a majority transpiring between 1900 hours and 2000 hours. The highest percent, 26%, of these major traffic collisions transpired on Friday alone, and 47% of them occurred between Friday and Sunday. There was one major traffic collision involving a police officer. The damage to his vehicle was considered minor. Traffic collisions that occurred on weekdays and weekends had no identified trend occurring, concerning the time of day. There were 2 OVUI traffic-related collisions reported and 2 involving wild animals. The major traffic casualties involved operator inattention and misjudgment. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Officer Cabanting for the criminal stats.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. So I'll be quick. South Koala District had 3 assaults and 3 burglaries during the month of December. There was 7 criminal property damages reported. We still maintain 0 robberies. We did have 11 thefts. Out of the 11, 3 were considered felonies. We had 5 stolen vehicles and 4 vehicles that were broken into. So, and drug cases we had 7 drug cases. 5 of the drug cases were marijuana, and 2 involve methamphetamine. So with the strong traffic enforcement, these officers are initiating drug cases from their observations looking into the vehicle. We did have 8 major incidents for the month of December. So like the major accidents, it went up a lot. But as far as addressing the fireworks, that between that 8 days, the 25th of December to the 2nd of the new year, 47 calls for service. Our officers were out there, and they're out there searching for the responsible. The captain touched in his message. So the South Koala newsletter went out today. If you guys got it, take a look at it. There's the stats. The stats are also in there. I just want to let you guys know another Coffee with a Cop is coming up on Friday, January 21st. It's going to be at the Waimea Starbucks, 9 to 11. Let other people know they can come in, talk stories with us. And we just want to put out there, the phone scams are still going on. People are still sending money electronically, and they're losing out on it. Just remind people, if it sounds fishy, it probably is fishy. You know, the police department is not going to ask for money over the phone or in prepaid debit gift cards. And we just encourage the public to please lock your doors and lock your cars. The older model cars are being targeted, and we started seeing tailgates missing again. People are taking tailgates to the older model Tacomas. But if you know anybody that wants to start a neighborhood watch meeting, I do have one coming up next week. And we're going to start a beautification project at Waimea Park. We got the county on board. We're getting some supplies ready. I'm going to get these kids out there, take care of that park. We're going to start painting first and see how that goes. But again, Happy New Year. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, James, for having us. And yeah, we look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you, officers. I appreciate you being on here. Before you head on out, I just wanted to pose one question to you that, you know, it was over the holiday time, was the Waimea Christmas Parade. If you could speak to that a little bit and how that really impacted the traffic, and what, you know,
Yeah.
there was a concern about, the question's really concerned about any of the emergency services that maybe weren't able to get through. Was that an issue?
From my standpoint, I was actually posted. I was working that night. I was posted by the Ace Hardware across McDonald's. That was the exit for the parade. Myself and Officer Robinson were there. The 2 lanes heading out of town, Hamakua bound towards Honokawa, were wide open. In the event an ambulance needed to get by, those lanes are wide open. We did have a post-parade meeting with the chair. And good and bad came out of it. You know, they identified what could have been better, but they're really looking forward to getting back to a traditional parade next year. You know, it all depends how the whole COVID situation. But their main goal was to just bring a little Christmas joy to the kids and the kupuna that were locked up. You know, at home. This was an opportunity to do a drive-through. A lot of planning went into it, a lot of hard work, and you know, we got comments both ways, negative and positive, but it was one night of inconvenience, I think. But you know, they had the lessons learned, so they're looking forward to doing it again, but a traditional parade next Christmas.
Yeah, if I may, like, the main problem here is COVID, right? That was the reason why it was the way that it was. We're really happy that we had the holiday celebration. It was great to get people out. As far as its impact on emergency services, police had no difficulty. And from our understanding, there was one hospital call requiring an ambulance, but it was not an emergency call. And that person was able to get to the hospital with little to no difficulty. We're unaware of any other emergency medical services that were impacted in any way. It definitely was inconvenient for people that were trying to get one way through traffic or the other, but plenty of notice was put out. We're sympathetic to any inconvenience that it caused, but you know, hopefully we can get back to a normal lifestyle come next year. Everyone's hoping for it. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Officer Robinson, Officer Cabanting. Appreciate you being here with us, and appreciate all you do for the community. Mahalo Nui. Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year's.
Wonderful. It's good to see you too. I'd like to move on here now. So unfortunately, with the recent surge in our COVID-19 cases, and not to mention another record-breaking day, we'd like to welcome on Queens North Hawaiʻi Community Hospital, their Vice Chief of Staff, and he's a board-certified infectious disease physician, Dr. Jonathan Dworkin, to share with us a brief COVID-19 update, also to share some insight and provide us some guidance going forward. Mahalo, Dr. Dworkin, for joining us. Thank you for taking the time this evening.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year, everybody. It's an honor to be here. I understand Dr. Hammer usually does this, and I'll try my best to pinch hit competently here. So, obviously there's a lot of COVID cases happening right now. We're really seeing just an absolute avalanche of cases. So the number of cases has never been higher. This wave is definitely distinct from the previous waves. The previous big wave was the Delta variant. That was a very severe variant. It caused a lot of pneumonia. And it was frequent for me during that wave to be rounding and to be seeing people, young people, middle-aged people, mostly unvaccinated, with severe bilateral pneumonia and respiratory failure at the hospital. We had many, many cases like that. Most people got better, but were debilitated from the illness. What we're seeing with the Omicron variant is a lot more upper respiratory type infections, which is a good thing because people tend not to get as sick. But we are still seeing some pneumonia coming in that's fairly severe. And when they're sick, they come in with pneumonia, viral pneumonia, and respiratory failure. Almost everybody that I've seen during both the Delta and Omicron waves with a severe presentation has been unvaccinated. Given how transmissible this is and how difficult it is to control transmission with traditional public health measures, the vaccine really is the best thing we've got at this point. Some statistics, I think in Kamo'ela, our vaccination rate is about 60 to 70%, according to some of the recent county data I saw. That's overall vaccination rate. Although statewide, it's a bit higher than that. Third shots in our county are only at 22%, according to the recent data I saw, which is not very good. So I'd like to encourage everybody to, if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. It'll definitely reduce your chance of being severely ill. The vaccines are safe. We've got 1.5 years of data now. This should be very uncontroversial at this point, from my perspective. And I'm one of the first people who got a shot, and I was a little nervous at the very beginning. But we have 18 months of data now showing the safety. Third shots versus second shots is an interesting topic. A lot of people were wary of the third shot because the thinking was, well, what are we doing? Are we just boosting people's antibody levels and then it's going to fall down and we're going to need to do another shot? I want to reassure people, because the data that I've seen on third shots is not only does the antibody level get much higher than the second shot with a third shot, but there's also a lot of science coming out now that the immune response is qualitatively better, not just quantitatively, not just the number of antibodies, but the actual type of immune response you get with a third shot is better. It's more diverse. It targets variants better. And I'm starting to think of this as just a 3-shot series. And I think that's probably how it's going to be in the future. So, by that standard, we've got a fairly decent vaccination rate for 2 shots, but a pretty poor one for third shots. So now is definitely the time to do that. Some of the data that I've been looking at with some of my colleagues in infectious disease in Honolulu and also internal medicine here in Waimea, we've looked at different places and we've looked at vaccination rate, and then we've looked at severe outcomes like death and intubation. And if you create a little chart and you do that around the world, what you see very reliably is that communities that hit 75 to 80% vaccination have much lower mortality than places that stall out in the 50s or 60s. And my concern on the Big Island is that we seem to be stalling out at around mid 60s, high 60s. If we can get up to 75, 80%, it's going to take a lot of pressure off the hospitals, and it's going to prevent a lot of deaths. So that's the big focus. Other things that matter, obviously masking. I know everyone's sick of this. I'm sick of it too. But certainly for indoor events, any kind of indoor event with people that you don't know that are not in your immediate family, masking is appropriate. The CDC has updated recommendations on masking given how transmissible this variant is. So we're now suggesting that people use surgical masks or N95 type masks, especially if you're in big crowded indoor environment, shopping centers, things like that. And obviously we would prefer people not at parties and things while we're in the peak of the wave. Those are the big things. A little bit of specific information. Queens North Hawaii Vaccination Clinic is running Wednesdays and Fridays. Anybody 12 or older can come 7 to 11 a.m. And then the 5 to 11s, because the dose is a little bit different for the keiki, it's a little bit smaller. Those are in the afternoon, 12 to 4. And they are offering third shots now for anybody 12 and up. So my 13-year-old completed his 2 shots last summer. He's going to go for his third shot most likely tomorrow. And I would encourage anybody who's got adolescents in school, kids socialize, they're indoors all day with each other, to do the third shot. And that's all I got in terms of information. I'd be happy to field some questions, and I appreciate opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Dworkin. There's one question that came across about the Johnson & Johnson shot, and then whether or not you need boosters so frequently after that one.
Yeah, amongst the 3 major vaccines that were licensed in the United States, that's the one that held up the poorest at 6 months in terms of efficacy data, which was a disappointment because there's some really nice things about that shot. And one of the really nice things about it was the idea that you'd have one shot and be done with it. But unfortunately, the efficacy dropped more dramatically with that than with the other one. Now, when we talk about efficacy dropping, I think it's important to distinguish between 2 things. With coronaviruses in particular, antibody levels, whether you get naturally infected or vaccinated, tend to drop after 5 to 6 months. And it's possible to get breakthrough infections. So there's the dropping efficacy against breakthrough infections, and then there's dropping efficacy against severe disease. And those are 2 different things. And one of the advantages of the vaccination is that it trains memory B cells and T cells and other parts of your immune system. It basically is a workout for your immune system. And that in turn, that includes the long-term memory components of your immune system. And the duration of that is likely a lot better. So what we're seeing now with breakthrough infections is that even though breakthrough infections have gone up, the vast majority of them are very mild. And these people are doing very well. And the people who are really sick are the people whose immune systems haven't been primed at all. And their very first encounter is with the virus. Because by the time they mount an immune response, day 5, day 7, day 10, the virus has already had a chance to do a lot of damage. So with Johnson & Johnson, there was an increase in breakthrough infections, but there was also in some of the data, an increase in severe breakthrough infections. And that's why it's really important, maybe even more so with that one, to get another shot. So for those people, we're suggesting second shots 2 months after the Johnson & Johnson, if that's the one that you had.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Dworkin. And Queens is still offering testing, of course.
Queens is offering testing, but unfortunately, the drive-up testing, which was a really nice thing, I don't think that's currently happening. It's through the emergency room. Right. We're having a lot of staffing issues right now at the hospital. And we're also having, because of the tremendous stress of this surge all around the country, drug shortages, including some of the antiviral medicines that work against this new variant. So even though the variant is more mild, in some ways it's created more severe problems on the hospital side of things in terms of staff shortages, medication shortages. The system is under a tremendous amount of stress right now. So that's been an issue, and that's included things like testing.
James,
yes, Councilor, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Doctor, for that information. I had a couple of questions that came through my office from constituents. One was, is there any recommendation with regard to mixing vaccine types? So if you've got Moderna for your first 2, is it okay to take Pfizer for your booster or vice versa? And secondly, if you had a reaction to your booster or your original vaccine doses, are you still recommending the booster even if you had a mild reaction to the vaccine?
Yeah, those are both really good questions. Mixing, there was a lot of controversy around that initially. I've seen some good studies on mixing that show that it's safe and that it works. If you had a Johnson & Johnson, you should definitely get one of the mRNA shots for the second shot. You don't have to, but you'll have a better immune response if you get a Pfizer or Moderna. If you started with Pfizer, you can do either the boost with Pfizer or you can switch to Moderna and vice versa. The responses are similar. So, there's some evidence that the Moderna may be the best of the 3 in terms of durable immunity. The dose is a little bit higher. But I think any of those are fine. So you can mix, And that's completely legit and CDC approved at this point. In terms of reactions, I always ask people, well, what was the reaction? You know, when you're getting a vaccine, you're training the immune system to recognize the virus. So what you expect is that the innate immune system is going to respond to the vaccine, and that you're going to have a sore arm, you're going to have a little bit of flu-like symptoms. And you know, we've all heard that expression in the old days, oh, the flu shot gave me the flu. And there's some truth to it, because what's happening is you're having an immune response, and you get a flu-like reaction as your body responds and starts generating an immune response to the virus. So it's normal to have pain, it's normal to have headache, it's normal to have fever. The Moderna in particular kicks some people's butts and they're down for a day, but that's actually a sign that the thing is working. So if it's that kind of a reaction, I tell people, don't worry about it. Definitely get your third shot, and take advantage of, do it before you have a day off. Make sure you complain a bit and get some soup and a movie and taken care of by your family, and that's fine. Now, if somebody has a more severe reaction, like a bad allergic reaction, that's the kind of thing they should talk to their doctor about, because what you would do in that situation is assess how severe it was and possibly switch to a different vaccine type. So it just depends, but most of these reactions have been very mild.
Great, thank you. And have you noticed it? Have you read anything about a difference in the ability of the tests to detect Omicron versus the Delta variant? How are the tests doing in picking this particular variant?
This variant's a little weird, and it does seem to be messing with testing a little bit. The official recommendation is that both PCR testing and rapid antigen testing still work. That's based on the FDA looking at a whole bunch of tests and doing some testing in the lab. On the street, it's been a bit quirky. I've talked to a number of patients who, were obviously exposed, had symptoms, obviously had COVID, and then tested negative on the first day and then tested positive on the second day. So it may be that this variant is behaving a little bit differently in terms of the onset of symptoms and maybe the compartment that it's involving. I mentioned at the beginning that we're seeing a lot more upper respiratory type presentations, sore throat and stuff like that. So some people, there was one paper I saw where the saliva was turning positive before the nose. So we may see some adjustments in recommendations about how to administer tests for Omicron, but the bottom line is the tests do work. They do detect it. We're not seeing failure except for a couple of specific test kits that are on the FDA website. So I think you can trust the test, but what I've been telling people is if you had an exposure and you're having symptoms consistent with COVID, so there's strong suspicion that it's COVID, and you test negative, especially if it's the first day of symptoms, you might want to distrust that, continue to self-isolate, use common sense, in other words, and see if you can get another test at day 2, day 3.
Thank you, Dr. Dworkin. Appreciate you having on here. Wealth of knowledge you have. So thank you for sharing with the community here. I appreciate all of your time and your commitment to our community. Thank you so much. And one other thing to note, this Saturday, the county and its medical partners will be holding a testing site here in Waimea at the Kalani Shuti Waimea District Park from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then again on Monday, we'll be at the same location from 2 to 5 in the afternoon. So that's another testing opportunity for those that are experiencing symptoms during this time, especially from the holiday get-togethers and so forth. And lastly, please continue to do your part in preventing the spread of COVID-19 by wearing masks, practicing good physical distancing, and avoiding large gatherings. I know this is a common recurrence and repeating this, but this is really our kuleana. Please consider being vaccinated. Please continue to do your part for the health and safety of our community and our loved ones, and especially our healthcare professionals and the strain that they're going through right now. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to visit hawaiicovid19.com, which is the state COVID-19 portal, or hawaiicounty.gov/coronavirus, which is the county portal for COVID-19. Mahalo, and thank you again, Dr. Dworkin, to you and your colleagues. Appreciate being on here. Aloha. All right. Next up, I would like to welcome in the Parker Ranch President and CEO, Dutch Kuiper, to share with us a special announcement. Welcome, Dutch.
Thanks, James. Aloha, everybody. Happy New Year. The grass is green. The rains came back, so that's wonderful news. I see Tim's updated his picture as well. Just a few minutes about something that we've been planning actually for about 3 or 4 years. We started conversations with Paniolo Preservation Society in 2018, 2019 about Pukalani Stables. For those of you that enjoy the Saturday and the Wednesday farmers markets, that was sort of a recent phenomenon the last 4 or 5 years, but it's been such a success and they've done such a great job managing it. We've decided to donate the Pukalani Stables to the Paniolo Preservation Society. And just to give you some background on that, Richard Smart, who was the last parker to control the ranch, who passed away in 1992, left the ranch to the trust with the 4 beneficiaries, the North Hawaii Community Hospital, Hawaii Community Foundation, and the two schools, Hawaii Preparatory Academy and Parker School. But the sort of story as it goes was that Richard's vision for leaving it to healthcare and education was really about a sustainable community. And what's interesting about that is if you look back to the gift of Queen Emma and Kamehameha IV's lands to Queen's Hospital, Kamehameha IV and Queen Emma actually also left lands to education. Some people don't know that, but they left lands to both Iolani and St. Andrew's Priory. I'm a beneficiary of the education at Iolani, having been born and raised on Oahu. And so I always like to think about Richard's gift as really focusing on the health and welfare of the community, but also the education of the community's youth. And so one of the fascinating things in the last 10 years, for those of you that follow this in sort of the professional world of urban planning and architecture, the concept of green building took hold, of course, about 15, 20 years ago. But now those same architects and urban planners are extending that to the community level and sort of asking themselves, what is a sustainable community? And I like to think about Richard's gift of the ranch to the trust as being sort of a man before his time. He kind of knew what a sustainable community was. He loved Waimea. He knew Waimea was a rural community. Rural communities are subject to the vagaries of, commodities and agriculture and everything that means. And we all love Waimea so much. And we're all really very grateful for the gift that Richard did when he left the ranch to the trust. And of course, that's a perpetual trust. And interestingly, when you look at these concepts of a sustainable community, one of them is having a community that has a legacy and a legacy worth preserving. And we're very fortunate that we have a special history, Kohala in Hawaii, Waimea in Hawaii, and of course the ranch. The ranch was founded in 1847. 2022 is actually the 175th anniversary of Parker Ranch. So in the sort of vein of celebration and recognizing that somehow we survived 175 years, I think if you count it up, it's 4 governments, including British occupation in the early 1850s, that we've been around a long time. And so it was important to us to kind of survey the ranch of what we could do to preserve the heritage, the legacy, the history of the community. And of course, the Paniolo is an important part of that. For those of you that don't know, we have several cowboys who are 4th, 5th, even 6th generation Parker Ranch cowboys. And as Tim knows, in the other ranches who have thrived for 100 plus years, you really need the cowboy, you need the Paniolo, because without the cowboy, you actually wouldn't be able to ranch. And so that choice of that lifestyle, that quality of life, that way of life, and living in a rural community is incredibly important to us. And so we thought the best way to acknowledge that and acknowledge the legacy of the Paniolo was to gift the Pukalani Stables, which obviously has significant historical meaning to the community, to Parker Ranch. Our horse program was very large for many, many decades. As some of you know, we sold horses pre-World War II to Imperial Japan. There's just some incredible history there. And so we thought it was a good idea. We approached Paniolo Preservation Society in 2019. We've had informal conversations the last 2 or 3 years. It's going to take about another year and a half, because we've got some land planning work we have to do with the county to include the land in the donation. But we're making that pledge. So we're making that announcement public. The board of Paniolo Preservation Society has met. They're accepting the pledge. And so we'll be working together with them over the next year and a half to complete that, to pass the ownership of the asset onto Paniolo Preservation Society, which I think gives them, a nice cornerstone asset to build a permanent endowment around, to do more around the museum, more capital improvements and that sort of thing. And we certainly will be working with them and supporting them in that effort. So my last tidbit is, as part of the celebration, we'll be at the farmers market. on Saturday morning, we've ordered 1,000 shirts celebrating the Parker Ranch 175th anniversary. We've already committed about 500 of them to different organizations in the community, but we'll be bringing the shirts to the farmers market and be handing those out. So those of you that get there early, you'll get a free t-shirt as long as they last. That's all I got, James.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Dutch. Congratulations to Paniolo Preservation Society and of course the Parker Ranch on your 175th. That's amazing. Exciting news for the community, and we look forward to the stewardship of the Paniolo Preservation Society of Pukalani Stables. Thank you for your generosity, Dutch. Appreciate
Thanks, everyone.
You. Mahalo.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Aloha. For this next minute here, I would like to share a couple of other additional community announcements. Let's see. So first, I'm going to share my screen here for an upcoming workshop that's welcome for the community here. So as you can see on your screen there, these are some advanced healthcare directive workshops. So if you're in need of establishing an advanced healthcare directive for yourself or your family, and if you would like to learn more about this, Community First Hawaii in partnership with the County of Hawaii will be hosting a few upcoming workshops. And as you can see on the flyer there, these are in-person events, but there's also an opportunity to join remotely. So the link is there. You can scan that QR code. We'll put it, it's up on our social media page as well right now. And you're welcome to learn about this more for your family and making the right steps going forward. So that's an opportunity there. All right, so that's the first one. Next is, as with the change of the Waimea seasons, you can see some of our amazing blossoms of the sakura trees throughout the town. And so the first weekend in February, we'll hold the annual Cherry Blossom Festival. COVID safety protocols will be in place, but this year's event will honor longtime volunteers Kikuko Kibe and Jay West for their many years of service. So please follow the festival committee's progress on their social media pages, and we will also continue to distribute information out to the community when it becomes available. So that's something to look forward to on the first weekend in February. And then also this Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon at Church Row, Hamakua Kohala Health and members of the community will be expressing their heartfelt gratitude with a drive-through celebration for one of Waimea's heroes, Dr. John Dawson. Dr. Dawson has served in our community for over 43 years. So please take a moment this Saturday to wish Dr. Dawson a hui hou and a mahalo. And of course, mahalo nui loa to Dr. Dawson for all of your contributions in pushing for a community hospital and for your care of our many Waimea family members, friends, and neighbors. Aloha to you. And of course, lastly, the Waimea Community Association wants to thank all of our viewers and fellow community members for continuing to do your part in the spread of COVID-19 and preventing that spread by wearing masks, practicing good physical distancing for in large gatherings. So let's please continue to do our part in the months ahead for the safety of our community and our loved ones. So thank you for letting me share those couple announcements there. And as we move to our main portion for tonight's meeting, I would like to encourage our viewers to submit, and I apologize, I made a mistake on Dr. Dawson, should be this Friday, actually, looking at my notes there. So that's 10 a.m. to noon on Friday at Church Row. Thank you for catching that one there. All right, so our main portion, if you'd like to submit any questions for our legislators at the state, once again, we have Representative Tarnas with us and our two council members representing the Waimea area. I appreciate and we appreciate you submitting questions ahead of time, and we will go through some of those. You're also welcome to submit some questions on the chat here as well, and we will try and capture as many as possible. We are at this point, we're going to give some time to our elected officials an opportunity to share with us their goals and priorities for the legislative session ahead, this year ahead. This will again be a challenging year on many fronts, and we are grateful for their leadership to help guide us through the difficulties ahead. So really to kick things off, I would like to welcome in Representative David Tarnas, representing Hawaii House District 7. Welcome, Representative Tarnas. Aloha, good to see you.
Thank you, James, and thank you to the Waimea Community Association for this opportunity to speak. And Happy New Year to everybody. May this be a safe and healthy new year for everybody. I'd like to give just a brief update on various different issues, and as we look to start the 2022 legislative session in just little less than 2 weeks from now. This session is going to be a really important one. It's the second year of the biennium, and so one of the key things we're going to need to address is the budget. As you know, last session was a very difficult year for the budget. We were $1.6 billion short in terms of our tax revenues. And so we needed either to make significant cuts in government spending, and that would have caused significant problems. But I must say, we were saved by federal pandemic relief funds. Without those funds, we would have been in real tough shape. There would have been layoffs. There would have been significant cutbacks in programs, but fortunately, the U.S. Congress did pass the pandemic relief funds, and we were able to use those for good purposes. As we move forward into this session, the Council on Revenues has projected improvement. It's not back to where we were, but it's improvement. And so our tax revenues are going to be much better than last year. And so the executive branch has actually given to us their budget. The way it works is that the executive branch puts together a budget for the entire state government, all of the agencies, and then they submit that budget to the legislature. The House of Representatives gets the first crack at it. Our job is to review it and determine what we think is good and what we think needs to be changed, and then we will amend it and modify it. After the House passes the budget, it goes to the Senate. They do the next pass of reviewing the budget, amending it, and then it goes back to the House. We work out our differences, and then by the end of session, which is going to be the end of the first week of May, we will have a budget. We will pass that budget, send it to the governor, and then he will have a budget to implement for the last few months of his term. As you know, 2022 is an election year, so everybody is up for election. There will be a new governor, new lieutenant governor. All of the House members and all the Senate members are up for election, and of course, all the council members as well. The council members are on the same schedule as we are in the House, at every 2 years. But this just happens to be a time when we'll be seeing a significant turnover of our elected officials. So this budget is going to be really important because it really helps us set the priority for what we need to do moving forward. It's a $16.9 billion budget proposal. I mean, that's a huge number. It's hard to grasp. So we have to look at each one of the different departments. The Hawaii Tourism Authority, they're requesting the same amount they requested last year, but this time they have to come back to the legislature and justify it. In years past, they were able to just take the money from their special fund without our approval. And now they have to come back to the legislature. We've changed the way that their funding is done. So we're asking tough questions, the Hawaii Tourism Authority. You know, during the COVID pandemic, we didn't have very many visitors here, and we saw significant changes in our parks, our nearshore waters. Many people were saying, hey, maybe we don't want to have 30,000 new arrivals every day, and maybe we don't want to have quite so many visitors. We need to have visitors to support our visitor industry, which is our biggest industry and supports many of our family members in employment. And it is something that I think is important for us to support. But the question is, what's our carrying capacity? How many is too many? And so we want to make sure we manage our tourism when they come back. We don't want them to overrun popular spots. Pololu, Council Member Richards and I were on a meeting today to talk about that with the community folks up in Pololu, saying we're overrun. It's a traffic hazard. People are doing their business in the bushes, and the beaches is so crowded it looks like Waikiki. That's not the Pololu that we're used to. We're used to Pololu where we can go down there with our families and enjoy a day. You can't even park anymore. So there's something that we need to address, so that we want to have visitors, but we really don't want to overrun our popular spots. I chair the House Committee on Water and Land. And so that is actually responsible for the budget of Department of Land and Natural Resources, as well as a couple of other offices and other departments, but primarily focusing on DLNR. And that includes all of forestry, all of public lands. It includes the Division of Aquatic Resources, the Conservation Enforcement folks, the State Historic Preservation Division, Bureau of Conveyances. All of those come within the DLNR. So my job as chair of the Water and Land Committee is to review their budget, recommend changes. And it's not just the funding, it's also the personnel. Last year, we had to cut personnel, we had to cut budgets. This year, we're looking on what we can restore, what's necessary. I'm not one to, immediately support a growth in government. I think we need to have smart government, not just willy-nilly increasing the size of government and increasing government spending. We have to be smart about it. And so that's my job, is to figure out what we need, what's essential, and then we need to fund that. And, especially when you're looking at, I talk to many folks who have got ranches and they're farmers, and they need to be able to do projects. In fact, they get NRCS to agree to soil conservation plan, and then it gets stuck in the State Historic Preservation Division. And SHPD is doing as much work as they can do. They're understaffed. And so my job is to figure out where are those choke points and what we can do to relieve those pressures, so we can allow people to be entrepreneurs, to conduct their businesses, and to work the land in agriculture in a responsible way. So one of the things that we're also trying to do is the legislature has a job of oversight, not only oversight over the agencies, but also oversight over the governor. And I know a number of you have written to me saying they're worried about the governor having these emergency proclamations that go on for so long, 2 years, that he's had these emergency proclamations. And they're saying, does he have too much power? We will be looking at that this session and seeing what can we do as legislators to make sure that the executive branch doesn't have too much power when it comes to establishing emergency proclamations and having them go on too long. And so we're working on those bills right now, and I expect we'll be working on that this session. Unemployment insurance, that was a huge issue over this last year. A lot of our family members were unemployed and they were having difficulty getting their unemployment claims filled. I got a lot of calls in my office, and we did as much as we could to try to get the unemployment division to do their job and actually process the claims. So what we're trying to do now is to make sure that we have money in the unemployment trust fund to be able to pay claims going forward. And we're short right now. I mean, last year we spent everything in the trust fund, and the way it usually works is that businesses pay unemployment insurance premiums, and that is what funds the unemployment trust fund. It was not responsible of us to go back to the businesses and say, okay, we're short on money, you got to pay more. That would have just crippled our businesses, and that's not the time to do it, is in this time of recovery. And so we actually borrowed money from the federal government to pay for our unemployment insurance claims. We borrowed $800 million to do that. And you think that's huge, but you know how much money we actually paid out in unemployment insurance claims? $6.5 billion. I mean, I'm astounded. That was so much money that we put out, but we needed to. We needed to make sure that people had the money to pay their bills, to put food on the table, to take care of their family. That's part of what government does. It's that safety net. So long story short, we borrowed money from the federal government to help pay for all those unemployment claims. We had to pay that back. So the legislature last year appropriated $700 million out of the federal pandemic relief funds to reimburse the federal government for what we borrowed. we put in another $100 million into unemployment insurance trust fund so that we could bolster that balance. But it's still depleted right now. It's at 123 million. And we want to have about 1.3 billion in that fund to pay for a year's worth of potential unemployment claims. So we've got to figure out how we're going to do that. And we do not want to go back to the businesses and say, okay, you got to pay it right now. So we're looking at how we're going to do that. Are we going to put additional general fund money in there? We're going to change the formula. So we're working on that. That's one of the priorities this year, to make sure that businesses are not going to see a huge increase in their unemployment insurance premiums, which is the potential that we're trying to avoid. And so that's going to be another big issue. So I touched on a number of these major fiscal issues. There's a whole bunch of issues that we're going to be working on, and I'm happy to talk to any of you who are interested in them offline. We won't have time to cover them today, but they'll include agriculture issues. Act 90, which is the transfer of public land for pastoral purposes from one agency, from DLNR to another agency, Department of Agriculture. I'm working on that issue right now. Red Hill, the contamination by the US Navy fuel of major aquifer on Oahu. What are we going to do about it? We got to make sure the US Navy pays for it, cleans it up, and we've stated as part of the House that we want the Navy to take the fuel out of those underground fuel tanks and figure out another way, put them into different tanks. And we got to protect our aquifer over here. We're following up on 2 audits, the Agribusiness Development Corporation and the Special Land and Development Fund, which is all public land leasing. That's going to be a major issue. And finally, the Mauna Kea Working Group. We've produced our draft report. It's out for review, and I invite people's comments. I recognize that not everyone agrees with this. This is a very difficult issue. My goal personally is to make sure that we have a future for astronomy on the mountain, and we address these long-standing grievances of the Native Hawaiian community. That's a difficult thing to be able to achieve, but that's what I'm trying to achieve. So I encourage you, let's talk about these difficult issues. You know, there's historical grievances that the Native Hawaiians have, and we do need to address them. At the same time, we need to figure out how to manage Mauna Kea in a way that can allow Native Hawaiians to have a bigger voice. But I am adamant that astronomy is an important part of, and a permissible use, appropriate use of Mauna Kea. And I think we have something that we can offer to the world as the premier site for astronomy. So I'm trying to figure out a way to a path forward to make this work. And I urge you to help me figure out that path forward so that we can do this together. Kako, it's the way to make things work. That's enough from me. I'm happy to respond to questions. And I give you a big mahalo for allowing me to serve as your state representative. And I look forward to responding to your questions later. But please call me, email me. I'm happy to respond. Back to you, James.
Mahalo, Representative. Thank you for joining us. And we'll get to some questions here in a moment. We'll jump in with our county-focused topics and kind of hear from our 2 council members. So first thing, I'd like to welcome in Councilor Richards, representing Council District 9. Welcome, Councilor.
Hello, James. Sorry, I had to change equipment. Too many Zoom calls today and ran out of some battery on my other iPad. So, well, first of all, again, thank you for the invitation to be here this evening and talk story a little bit about what 2022 is going to look like for the council, what some of my personal initiatives are going forward. And what Dutch is talking about, very appropriate. And I've been around long enough that I actually work cattle through Pukalani Staples. Terrific for the Paniolo Preservation Society. Okay, so moving on. We had council this week, and actually Councilwoman Heather Kimball, who will be on just shortly after this, she and I are actually working on a couple of different things together. And I'll touch on a little bit of that, and I think sure she'll follow up on that. But coming forward, this week during council, we had some conversations about some initiatives and priorities for the environmental management group. revolves around the solid waste, the wastewater, as well as green waste. And that report will be coming out and will be before us in a couple of weeks. And Heather Kimball and I discussed this. There's some other things that she and I are working on and we'll be working on going forward, but I'll let Heather touch on those. For the 2022, as everyone's talked about, we sure hope 2022 is going to be better than 2021. It's not a hard standard to get beyond that, but what we're looking for, we've talked a lot about the economy, and Representative Tarnas has talked on that. As he mentioned, we were on a Zoom call earlier, setting plans for the future. We talked about the recovery for our county, for our state, and I'm a numbers guy. We look at our economy as a whole. The GDP of our county before the whole pandemic is somewhere around $8.5 billion. Of that, about 40% was tourism. For a year and a half, we lost 40% of our economy. So as we retool, as we start looking going forward, how are we going to be doing this? And for myself, sure, we talked about the recovery with the tourism side, and tourism has been a big portion of our economy for a long time, but I'm from agriculture, and I want to see the economy of agriculture, not just the economics, but the economy of agriculture come forward. Park Ranch has done a terrific job. They have the Paniolo Cattle Company coming forward. We're talking about food security, food self-reliance. And so what does that mean for us going forward? Currently, we bring in about 90% of the food we consume, but we can do better, especially here on the Big Island. For our state, our economy is only about 1% agriculture. Nationally, it's about the same thing. Only 1% of our national GDP comes out of agriculture. The thing is, agriculture is keenly important to our society as a whole. Our county of Hawaii, as near as I can figure, is somewhere between 4 and 5% from our GDP is from agriculture. And we can expand that. In order to do that, we have to have that infrastructure. And this is where I'm coming in about this. When we talk about infrastructure, there's a lot of funding coming out of Washington, D.C., and this is a priority that our council is putting forth as far as what we want to get done. But with that infrastructure funding available, sure, we're talking about roads. I have to talk about the bridge, and I have to talk about Councilwoman Kimball's bridges in Hamakua, because we desperately need to improve that. But I also want to see infrastructure investment going to value adding for agriculture, whether it's be for the vegetables, for the livestock industry. We need to do the value added here in our county itself, and then actually export to the rest of the state, even to the continental US. There are some commodities that we can do there. So from my perspective, what I'm looking for is being able to put in that infrastructure to get that economy rolling. Same thing when it comes to our energy. Our county is way ahead of the rest of the state as far as our renewable energy portfolio. We have photovoltaic, hydroelectric, wind, geothermal. All of this can be combined and will put us, and even Helco, our local power grid, has said they're going to be 100% renewable by 2030, well ahead of the 2050 goal that was set by our state. What we can do with that energy is we can actually develop an economy around hydrogen. And again, so from my own personal side, I want to push the economic and the economy of energy and the economy of agriculture for our county going forward. And so these are some of the things I'll be working on both at the local, state, and then even at the national level as we work with the National Association of Counties and finding some of that direct funding to bring back to our county. A lot more to go ahead on this, and very interested in that, finding out any questions. But I'm turning this over to Councilwoman Kimball because she can add into some of the things that we've discussed.
Please, Councilor, yes. Thank you. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you so much to the Waimea Community Association for the invitation, as always, to come and present tonight. And thank you, Rep. Tarnas, for the insight into what you have planned for the next year at the state legislature, and all that you do representing us there in Honolulu. And James, I wanted to give a special thanks to you for all your service on the Reapportionment Commission. I'm sure you're grateful that your job there is done. I will say I'm a little disappointed that you didn't go with the draft that gave a little bit of more of Waimea to Council District 1. I was actually looking forward to that, but I'll settle for the little bit more that you guys ended up giving me. But if you haven't checked it out, folks, please do check out the final maps from the reapportionment for the upcoming election. We have some exciting news. I understand that the County of Hawaiʻi will also be getting an 8th House seat, which is really fantastic for us. So that's something to celebrate today. But to refocus on priorities at the council, first I'll say this is on December 7th, it was officially 1 year for me in my first term as a council member for Hawaii County. And when people ask me how it's going, I always say this is the hardest job I will ever love. I am grateful every day to have the opportunity to serve the community in this way. It's very challenging. There's so many different things that we need to be on top of. And of course, we are in extraordinary times. So me and my team, when we got started a year ago, we really had to hit the ground running with all sorts of issues that were before us, and those continue today. The good news is I am still bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and excited about getting things done for our county. First and foremost, as Rep. Tarnas mentioned, one of their primary responsibilities is fiscal. So that's the same here at the county. We don't have quite as much money to work with, unfortunately, but we do have the budget to go through. And so that cycle is coming up in just a couple of months here. And we'll be looking closely at how the funds are expended in our county. I know that, in talking to community groups out there, making sure that our government is transparent and fiscally responsible is a key priority for a lot of you constituents out there. And one of the things to that end that is being considered is an upgrade to our financial software, which would include some forward-facing information about how money is spent in the county. To give you folks some perspective, our financial system that we're working with right now is as old as our financial director's son, who I believe is in high school. So it is a good time to upgrade our system. And in business, they say you've got to spend money to make money. I would say in government, sometimes you need to spend money to save money. And I think this is one of those examples. If we can do a little bit better tracking, provide a little bit more public information about where your tax dollars are spent, that's a benefit to all of us. On the wastewater issue, which is tied to this is something that has become a key priority for me when I came to understand really the situation we're in, needing to repair a lot of older wastewater infrastructure, as well as develop infrastructure for currently underserved areas. We do have the most cesspools of any county in the state, about 50,000. And we do have to convert all of those by 2050. That seems a long way off, but it's going to be here before we know it. And it's important to our environment and our nearshore areas to get those conversions happening sooner rather than later. And so I've been working with our environmental management director, as well as some of our colleagues at the state, to look at different opportunities to bring in wastewater funding into the state. And I'm pretty excited about some of the things that we're fleshing out. And I'm going to work specifically with Councilmember Richards on some of the issues in the Puako area, which I know has been a longstanding, that's a high priority area to get those cesspools converted, of course. The other things that I've been working on, and I did want to mention that it's similar to the issues in Palolu, we have the same issue in Waipio. Certainly over this holiday last couple of weeks, the number of visitors to that area has really been unsustainable. So I have been working with our Waipio working group to continue to find solutions to how we're going to receive visitors properly to the valley in a sustainable way, and with the volume that the valley can really handle. To that end, I'm very excited to say that Hawaii Island Visitors Bureau has provided us with some funding to do a facilitated process with the community to help work out that plan. So that is going to begin, those meetings are going to begin this month. There will be open to the general public, so please look for information about when those are happening if you have interest in contributing to that conversation. Like Councilmember Richards, I'm also interested in energy and our conversion to renewable energy. I did want to mention that we have HELCO coming in to present before council in February 8th. So on what their plans are moving forward in terms of growing their renewable energy portfolio. So if you're interested in that, please tune in to that presentation. Other things that I'm continuing to work on with other members of the council, and because of the Sunshine Law, I can't go into detail too much about those, but I am working with Councilmember Inouye on some affordable housing issues, particularly giving some options to developers beyond inclusionary zoning. That's a method that we've used for a long time to make sure that we build sufficient workforce housing and affordable housing with developments, but it's not, it may not be the best solution in all cases. So we have some interesting ideas there moving forward. Short-term vacation rentals came up in our discussions about the TAT bill. We will have some more resources now in terms of making sure we're tracking those vacation rentals, and they're abiding by good neighbor policies and whatnot. So I have been working with the planning department on the regulations with regard to short-term vacation rentals. Very excited to put forth a bill regarding decarbonization of transportation. This builds off of something that the House, Representative Tarnas and his colleagues passed last year, Bill 1142, which requires electric vehicle chargers to be put into parking lots of 100 stalls or more. That and 1142 allowed us to enforce that at the county level through ordinance. So I've been in the process of developing that ordinance to get that going in our county. And then finally, I wanted to tie back into what Councilmember Richards was talking about as far as agriculture, and just highlight the work of our research and development department. They were one of several applicants to apply for a Build Back Better grant, which is an economic development grant. And they were chosen, they are one of 60 finalists chosen across the country to participate in a competitive process for this grant funding. This grant funding provides opportunities for up to $100 million to support economic development projects. And our research and development department focused on agriculture and building out our food sustainability and agricultural infrastructure as sort of the purpose and the function of their grant application. So very excited they have received $500,000 to do more technical research and develop their full proposal in partnership with Hawaii Island Food Alliance and the Hawaii Island Agricultural Partnership and Hamakua Institute. It's very exciting. They have a very robust plan, a lot of different moving pieces. I am very hopeful that they make it to the next round and get more sustained funding as part of this exciting project. So with that, I know that's a lot. I talked really fast, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, James and all of the Waimea Community Association board members, thanks for allowing me to participate tonight. Nice to be on. Aloha.
Absolutely. Mahalo, Councilor. It's good to have you on here with us. And right, so as we move towards this last portion of our meeting here, we've heard from our 3 elected officials representing the larger Waimea area. We want to share some of our viewer and community questions with our elected officials here. We did recently email our WCA members a community survey. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, please do so. We will make this survey more readily available on our website and our social media accounts, and we'll keep it open for at least the rest of the month. And really thank you for those taking the time to look over it and answer some of those questions on there. We tried to keep it a little bit short and constrained, so it didn't take up too much of your time, but we do appreciate your input. And we will use that to really guide our conversations throughout the rest of the year as best as possible, and even help generate potential meeting topics for this year. Also, thank you to our viewers for taking time to submit questions ahead of time. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we're able to in about the next 15-20 minutes here. I'd like to close at about 7 o'clock this evening here. So you're also welcome to pose some of your questions in the chat, and I've captured some of those, and we will do our best to input those as well and mix them in. If we are unable to get to your question, well, I do apologize. We will save them and share them with these elected officials, our elected officials here, and then they can reply back to us when it's convenient for them, and we can share with everyone. And of course, I just want to thank Mary Beth Lachek and Mike Donnelly for helping to pose the next few questions to our elected officials. And once again, we'll intersperse some of the live feed questions in here. So Mike and Mary Beth, I will pass it over to you, if you don't mind.
Thanks, James. So I'll start off with kind of a two-part for David Tarnas. One's an easy one, I think, and the other's a little bit more explanation. Any update on the Waiaka Bridge development or change there? And then more significantly important, over the last really 6 months, I think, to 9 months, we've seen shipping costs just skyrocket. And I think everybody feels the pain at the box stores and the like. And so from a legislature standpoint, is there anything being considered at the state level to manage that with when we see a 46% rate hike? Is it going to continue, level out, and will it ever go back down?
Thanks for those questions, Mike, and thanks to the Waimea Community Association members who asked those questions. Regarding the project to replace Waiaka Bridge and realign the intersection between Kohala Mountain Road and Kauai High Road, that project is moving forward. This is the third iteration we've tried to do this. I know it's been tried many times before, but this time I'm determined to make it work. The draft environmental assessment was scheduled to be released in December 2021. It did not get released. I'm expecting it this month. That, as soon as it's out, I will put it out in my e-newsletter. If you're not subscribers to that, please call my office or email me and we'll put you on there. I'll also tell James about it and he can spread the word and Councilman Richards. It's going to be a public comment period once it's released. So this will be an opportunity for everyone to take a look at that project. It'll give different alignments for that intersection. Is going to be, and ask people what their input, what their preferences are. Should it be a roundabout? Should it be a T intersection? And there'll probably be a couple different angles. We've appropriated sufficient funds to the DOT highways so they could purchase the right-of-way necessary to be able to do any of those alternatives. And that would include purchasing at least a portion of the property that's formerly known as the Kamola Museum. So that's the next step. There is a website that you can go to get updates on it. And I can give you that, just call my office or email me and I can provide that information. It'll be in my next e-newsletter because I really do expect this draft EA to be out soon. After the draft EA comments come in, then they finalize the EA. They select the preferred alternative that is presented. Once that's accepted, then we go forward into design and then construction. This will be a significant inconvenience when we start building this thing. There will have to be a temporary bridge to allow traffic through, but there will be a lengthy period during construction where we'll all feel the pain. And I apologize for that. But we got to get through it in order to have an improved bridge. This bridge was built in 1932. It needs to be replaced. So we're going to need to deal with it. So that's the Waiaka Bridge and the intersection improvement. Shipping costs. The shipping costs are something that has to be approved by the Public Utilities Commission. It's not something that the legislature gets to review and approve. So I am tracking this because I do know that this is a significant increase that's being passed on to consumers. People are complaining, they're calling me and they're saying, hey, we can't afford to buy the food that we wanted to buy for our Christmas dinner or our New Year celebrations. and I go to the big box store and it's still way too expensive. So I know that the shipping is playing a big role in that. So I'm tracking this issue, but it's not something that the legislature has a direct role in reviewing and approving those shipping rates. I am concerned about the financial stability of our inter-island shipping, and that I'm concerned that ports like ours and other rural ports are not getting service at a reasonable rate. So I'm part of a national organization, and it's called the National Conference of State Legislatures. We at our annual meeting that we had just a couple of months ago, Senator Lorraine Inouye sponsored and I co-sponsored a resolution that we passed by all of the members of this national organization to urge Congress to set up a program very similar to what we have for rural airports, where it's a federal subsidy to underwrite the costs for providing services to our rural seaports. We get a rural airport subsidy to continue flight services in and out of the Waimea airport. We're trying to get the federal government to set up a similar program for rural seaports, and that would assist us here in our seaport as well as others in the state. So I'm trying a variety of different ways to help control the increase that we're seeing. And I'd be happy to follow up with this with more details with the questioner offline. So please contact me. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Representative Tarnas. Our next question goes to our county officials, and I'm going to combine a couple of questions in one, because it looks like the people who submitted questions ahead of time are really interested in green waste on our transfer stations. And I know, Congressman Richard, you alluded to this, but the questions are, what steps are being taken to address the limitations of trailers at these transfer facilities? What can be done about the odd scheduling and lack of recycling at transfer stations, such as green waste on one day, recycling on another? You can't do metal here. And lastly, green waste disposal is limited at both Honoka'a and Waimea, which is causing a backup of and illegal dumping of not only green waste, but other, for lack of a better word, junk. Particularly in the areas from Honoka'a to Waipio Valley. And so they're seeing more cars and boats and appliances. So I think the larger question that people seem to be asking is, what kind of measures are the county planning in the next year for our green waste and transfer stations?
The short answer to this one is the fact that this is exactly what's coming before us in 2 weeks. And we will have a list, we'll have a very frank discussion with environmental management about all of this stuff coming forward. There are some hearings scheduled for the use of trailers going to the solid waste coming up, and I can get those dates. You can contact my office for that. There'll be hearings both east side and west side for public comments on that. And these are rules that environmental management is putting forth, administrative rules. And there was a lot of pushback with the use of trailers, or the prohibit of the use of trailers. And for some of the facilities, they're going to be allowing the use of trailers in a limited deal. All of the concerns are very warranted that have been articulated here, and these have been repeatedly stated to environmental management. This has been requested for the list of priorities and how we're going to be going forward. So in 2 weeks, Tuesday the 18th, I believe it is, this will be reviewed. And so tune in for that, for a live and frank discussion with environmental management.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kimball, did you want to chime in anything about that as well?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add. I think that we are both, Councilmember Richards and I, waiting to see the presentations from the Department of Environmental Management on both their priorities with regard to solid waste in general, And then specifically with regard to development of any kind of composting facility, which ties into this as well. And both of those presentations were postponed from earlier this week to the 18th, as Councilmember Richards said. So we will have more information, and maybe that's a topic that you want us to cover at the next meeting. But certainly I very much recognize the challenges here and the concerns, particularly about the illegal dumping, and that continues to be a problem in all of the gulches and the rural areas among in the district. So something that I know Councilmember and Richards and I consider a high priority in making sure we're protecting public health and safety.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll pass it over to Mike if you have another question.
Thanks, James. I'll stick with the councilors for now. Can both of you comment on any updates in terms of recycling? There's one of the constituents said that the old recycling schedule and lack of recycling at our transfer stations needs improvement. Green races only certain days, recycling on others. Some take metal, some don't. Just any update on recycling from your perspective?
I'll take that one first. And obviously recycling is a big concern, especially for a county like ours, which is basically, I always tell people it's like managing a little continent. It's garbage in, garbage out, literally. There's some concepts that we've floated forward concerning end of life funding. You know, you pay a tire fee, you pay a battery fee. This may be what we're looking for the larger appliances, things like that coming forward. Any of the recycling, we're stuck in the same boat that everyone else is across the nation, across the world. The recycling that was being done previously has shifted substantially. When you talk about the transportation costs, by that going up, that makes recycling less likely and less attractive, because from a financial standpoint, that causes a lot of problems. That being said, there are some things we can do. 50% of the material going into our solid waste is biological. And as Councilman Kimball pointed out, the composting, that type of recycling, we can actually do some here in our county. I've been out to the green waste facility on the east side, and the tonnage that they're processing, and they're not even able to compost it really, because they don't have enough of it long enough to truly compost it. It's sort of halfway. There's a potential there, and there's a way to get that going forward. But we as a county have to have that as an initiative. And once again, it sounds like a cop-out, but in 2 weeks, this will be coming before us, and we'll be having the frank discussions on this.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kimball, did you want to add anything else on that one in regards to recycling, your thoughts?
Yeah, just to build off of what Councilmember Richards was saying, you know, we know that there's a huge market out there for mulch, and there's a huge market for compost. And so that we know that there's the end market to support the reuse of some of these materials. And so it is a priority to make sure we make that possible. I know it's been a frustration to not be able to recycle some of the other materials that we're used to recycling. A key note is there has been some shuffling of employees in the Department of Environmental Management. We do have a new recycling coordinator, so that will hopefully help facilitate and move some of this forward. I was fortunate enough that the current administration allows us councilors to come and sit in some of the budget meetings that the different departments have with the Director of Finance. And so I asked to be able to sit into the Department of Environmental Management's budget hearings, and I know that they recognize that there is a concern about this fluctuation of staffing and what's allowed to be dropped off when at the various transfer facilities. So that just to say that this is something that the department is aware of and is discussing different options as far as how they might address it going forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Mary Beth, did you want to throw another question at Representative Tarnas here?
Yes, I actually have a question, I think that is specifically for Representative Tarnas, but I do offer both of our council people the opportunity to chime in as well, since it involves our keiki and education during COVID. So what steps are being taken in our public schools to prevent the spread of COVID? how can we provide our students the best education with the stressors and issues? And then on the Big Island specifically, but statewide, we are seeing busing crises because of COVID cases among bus drivers and lack of staffing issues. So I invite everybody to answer questions about our keiki and COVID, please. Maybe Rep. Tarnas, you would want to start off.
I can start off just by saying it's a huge problem. We've got a problem with the lack of bus drivers. And so that's why we're not getting enough buses out there. There's just not enough bus drivers. We're contracting out to Roberts and other vendors, and they can't get enough bus drivers. So if anybody wants to get into another career, there's work there. And so that's one issue. The other is, we're not meeting the needs of our teachers to get tested regularly. They're doing the best they can, but we're running short on testing supplies. I mean, Dr. Dworkin could attest to this. We don't have enough tests around to be able to do the kind of testing we need to do. And so that's causing trouble. Today in the Honolulu paper headlines, 800 teachers called in sick statewide. Another 800 were called in absent for other reasons, and they couldn't get enough substitutes to cover everybody. We're just starting the year, this new year. And so this morning we met with the governor, the House members met with the governor, and this was the top issue that we brought up with them, saying, please work with the superintendent, figure out with the teachers union how we're going to move forward. We've got to meet the needs of our keiki. They do much better when they are learning in person than they do when they're online. And so I don't have a solution for you, but we have identified this as a top priority. We did meet with the governor this morning and emphasized that this is urgent. And as I learn more, I'll certainly update the community on that. But I agree with whoever asked that question, that is absolutely a top priority.
Thank you, Representative. Either council members, did you want to chime in on this in terms of busing for our keiki, or open it up to the mass transit and any issues around that or priorities for mass transit?
I'll jump on our schooling and do what we can for the community. As Representative Tarnas talked about, we have to have the testing in place, and 500 million tests have been ordered by the president, but there's going to be a delay to get those. The reality is we have to do what we can do in this community, and social distancing, masking, hygiene, and we've got to get vaccinated. You hear Dr. Dworkin talking about that. We have to do that. If we can hit that 80% level, and this spills over from my veterinary side, but the 80-20 rule does apply. And right now, our county is about 66%. We have to push this vaccination, because if we can get to that, then we're going to do a much better job taking care of the community as a whole. I'll let it go at that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kimball, anything else on that?
Yeah, I'll just chime in on the mass transit piece. So the busing and getting the kids to school is absolutely critical, and we have for a while now allowed kids to use Helion, the mass transit system, for free to get to school. And the council did pass ordinance last week that for the first reading, that would make busing free for everyone for the next 2 years, which is very exciting. But I wanted to speak a little bit about what Rep. Tarnas was talking about, how the children do better when they have the in-person learning. And as a mom of 2 kids at home in school, I do worry about their mental health. And this has been a very stressful year for all of us. And I'll just close by saying, take care of each other. Remember that this is a difficult time. Getting people back to what is normal, back to school for our kids, back to work for us, being able to gather together is critical for all of us as human beings to feel healthy, both emotionally and physically. And so get those vaccines, practice all those good techniques that Councilmember Richards mentioned. The sooner that this is all our kuleana, the sooner we can get all of us vaccinated and get back out there, the better it's going to be for all of us, including your keiki. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. It is 7 o'clock, so I would cut it there at that point. I do appreciate everyone's questions. We had a lot of good questions, and I apologize for not getting to all of them, but we will share them with our elected officials, and we will get an answer from them on these couple of things that we weren't able to address, and we will share them back out with the community here. Just wanted to say a couple words before we close tonight, but first of all, mahalo nui to all of our presenters for joining us this evening, for really taking the time to update our viewers and for helping to lead our community through the challenges ahead, and really appreciate the service on behalf of the community, the service of our elected officials, especially during this time. And of course, thank you to all of our viewers for joining the live stream this evening. You are welcome to revisit, rewatch this recording up on the WCA Facebook page, and even up on our YouTube channel, which will get up this weekend. And on behalf of the Waimea Community Association Board, I want to wish everyone good health, be well, aloha.